right, and now we welcome in none other than Jeffrey Jordan. And is it still Jeffrey or is it Jeff? Like, what are we going with here? I want to make sure I get it right.
I mean, most people call me Jeff. I have no preference, but Jeff works. All good.
All right, people. The only person who calls me Jeffrey is my mother when she's really, really pissed off at me. So.
Yeah, likewise.
We'll stick with Jeff. We'll stick with
Sounds
Jeff.
Good. Sounds
right,
good. Thanks for having me, guys. For sure.
No. Thanks for coming on. I mean, you and Rob have history here. For people that don't know, you have history. 2005, 2006, Nike camp teammates. I don't know who got more shots. My guess is neither one of you got a lot because Ty Lawson had the ball in his hands, and Ty did not love to pass back then. Did he, Jeff?
That's very, very true. I remember a lot of coast-to-coast layups, getting rebounds and taking it distance. Wasn't a lot of passing. Wasn't too many assists going around, but it was a fun time. I think
did Rob pass?
Everybody had fun.
Hey, did Robbie pass?
I never had the ball. I never had the ball on that team.
I think I was the only one who passed to Robbie, and every time I passed to him, I wanted him. It had to go up. So
get one up, right?
You got to get one up for sure. But it was a lot of fun. Man.
Our team, Jeff, and my mom. I'll send you the photo. My mom, she had to go through some stuff from my high school, and she's kept every photo that's ever been taken basketball wise, of course.
Wow.
And she came across a picture from our team at the 05 Nike camp, and John Shire, could really score. Yeah. Ty Lawson had 50 points in one of our games.
Yeah.
Sean Sims was he could score at Michigan, but in high school, he was really chucking them up.
Monster,
and the worst was Curtis Kelly.
Oh,
yeah.
Kelly was jacking.
For sure.
I'm pretty convinced that you and I might have taken a combined 3 shots, maybe.
I agree. If it was 3 shots, we would have been lucky. I don't know if we got that many up, but man, we were stacked. Everybody was just playing, just out there hustling. Competitive spirit was there. Just a super talented group of people.
That was also the year at Nike camp though that D Rose was there and Durant was there. So the talent, usually ABCD and ABCD was still really good that year, but Nike camp had some real players. Do you remember? You probably don't remember this, but we were playing at NIFS, which was the center over on the campus IUPUI. Nice gym. They had I think they had one of the RCA Dome Final Four courts and the Market Square Arena courts. They had 2 courts down, and we were leaving out the back stairwell. And I was walking out next to you or behind you, and in the back stairwell, there was this 2-story poster of your dad.
Yeah.
We're walking out, and I'm looking at this. And I grew up in Valparaiso, Indiana. The Bulls are my favorite team. Your dad is my favorite player of all time. And I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at you, and I'm like, this is this guy's fucking dad. How crazy is this? It was unbelievable.
It was wild, man. And, I think it was hard for me to recognize how you guys looked at me, right? Because I was just part of the guys. Everybody treated me as I was supposed to be there and having a good time, just trying to do their best, right? So, I think from time to time, I talked to a few people. I remember Curtis Kelly, definitely had a bunch of questions for me throughout that time. And there was just a bunch of guys I feel like that I had already known prior to that too, like Jared Bayless and obviously D Rose and those guys. So, and Shire. So it was just kind of it didn't stun me that much, but I definitely got some questions and some looks and stares. It was a lot of fun though.
All right, so tell me what you're doing now. What have you been up to? How old? You and Hummel the same age? Are you guys both 35-ish?
30. I'll be 34. Yeah, I'll be 34 in November.
I'm aging you. Hummel played 8 years in college, so I tell everybody he's 40 already, and people believe it, Jeff.
Yeah, that's the best part. Spreading these bullshit rumors about me out here.
Hey, I'm right there with you. It feels like we've been playing for about 20 years, but
you've aged a lot better than Hummel.
I'll take it. I was at Nike for about 8 years, hence why I was in Portland, Oregon, for quite a bit of time. I led digital innovation there. So a lot of the esports gaming space, podcasts, 2K, just new mediums that the brand wasn't used to, I would go out and explore and, make the case for why we should bring them internal, and build something ourselves. And the pandemic hit, and I think, at that point, I'd spent a lot of time, it was a new place at Nike, new faces. And I thought, this would be the time, if I'm going to take the time to get out, I could always probably come back and find a space at Nike. But, I think that was an opportunity for me to go out and be more of an entrepreneur, do my own thing. And luckily I kept in contact with a couple of my friends that I worked through or with at Nike. Jerron Smith, who was Steph Curry's basketball business manager for quite a while, and then another friend of ours, Daniel George. And we just pretty much got together, tried to figure out what was next for our career, and started a company called AIR, HEIR, which stands for How Excellence is Remembered. And it's been a fun journey. We raised the largest seed round in Thrive Capital's history, $10 million. So it was great. It was a great start. It's still early. But yeah, it's a lot of building, totally different world than
what is it,
what I was
Jeff?
used to in corporate.
Explain kind of what it is.
So the Air app is basically a new way for fans to connect with their favorite athletes and vice versa. We do that by basically on-chain, blockchain, and off-chain transactions. And basically, we help athletes sell their NFTs, give exclusive content to their fans, access to memorabilia, game tickets, stuff like that. So it's a capped community. Every athlete's community is capped, and basically the only way you can come in that community is if you sell the NFT. That's basically your ticket. So it's like similar to a personal seat license for a community of collectors.
Cool. Jeff, how early to the space are you guys in that? I feel like for people like Goodman and I, we would be just hearing about NFTs in the last year, but I'm sure that there's been probably work being put in. Are you guys late to that space, or are you guys kind of in the middle, or where is the NFT world?
Probably in the middle. So we did our seed round in spring of 2021, and that was at the peak time where everybody was talking about NFTs, and there was just a lot of excitement around it. Obviously, I think it's a very, very long-term prospect when it comes to looking at the gamut of things you can invest in. It's definitely a long-term project, which, I think for us, we get a chance to utilize our marketing skills a little bit more, things that we did at Nike, combine tech and sport in a new way. So that's kind of what we focus on. And yeah, there are other players in the space that are still ramping up, but that's the beauty of Web3, is that everybody's kind of starting from the ground up, and it's a wide open market right now.
Are you guys mostly working with pro athletes, or do you see NIL as an opportunity to maybe get into that space for college players?
Absolutely. So we have our first athlete was Lonzo Ball. We started with NBA guys. We did Anthony Edwards this past summer. And then, we've looked at some of the NIL guys. Amari Bailey, somebody that we've had great conversations with and potentially coming on board. And we actually just did a whole 2-on-2, the first ever 2-on-2 basketball tournament for some of the highest, some of the high school guys that have been, doing well and kind of rising seniors, if you will. And so that was a lot of fun. Like, I think just doing those kind of fun events and experiences around NIL and just supporting their journey in any way possible is our bread and butter. And how can we also teach them about the space and what we've been building?
Can we get a Hummel NIL? Can we do a Hummel NIL? Can I be
Let's
part of that
NFT
community?
moron. I don't play college basketball anymore. I can't get NIL.
We should definitely do an NFT for the podcast for sure. For sure.
We can get a knee brace out here or something. So Jeff, I want to ask you, going back to high school and where you're working on your game, you're trying to be the best player you can, and your dad is one of the best players and really one of the most famous people on the planet. What was it like to play the same sport as Michael Jordan when you're trying to be Jeffrey Jordan?
Right. It was definitely, I think, early on when I started to take basketball a little bit more seriously, like 10 to 13 years old, the pressure was palpable. Like, people are coming, you have larger than normal crowds at, a seventh grade basketball game or sixth grade basketball game. And he tried to make as many as he possibly could. And that was something that was unique. And I think, I would go see other friends play. I would go see other schools play. And I noticed maybe this was a little different, right? My situation may have been a little bit different. But as time went on, like, I think the game and the instincts that you have as a basketball player just kind of have to take over, right? You have to throw caution to the wind. You can't think about who's in the stands or who's watching, because that'll affect your play. So over time, it just continued to get a little easier year after year to deal with and block it out, for sure.
What was the hardest part of it? Like, what was the hardest part?
I think just the competition. Like, you were getting everybody's best game, right? You knew they were coming.
They wanted to beat you. Yeah, they wanted to kill you.
They wanted to beat me, yeah. Right? I probably never met them. Probably don't even know me. I've never heard of them. And you're going to get their best game, and it was like that every single time we played. And so I wouldn't have it any other way. Like, I think that adds something. And obviously tons of trash talk, tons of energy in any environment helps me. So it was a lot of just targeting, right? Like, how do I go after him and kind of make my name known against the Jordan?
So when I watch LeBron now with Bronny, I don't know if you see this at all, but LeBron is very active. Very active. Like, if he's not coaching, he's still on the sidelines. Like, I remember a couple of years ago, the first time I saw Bronny was in Vegas, and LeBron knew every kid's name on the team. The kid would come off the court and he would give him like maybe a little bit of advice. I was super impressed, to be honest. I was like, man, he's involved. I didn't think he'd be. Your dad was different with this, wasn't he? Didn't he just kind of sit in the stands and just?
Absolutely. He was just kind of, I think he harped on, having fun with the game first. He said, basically, if you don't have that love of the game, or you don't have enough time to play it and figure out how much fun it is to you, you're not going to want to work at it later on. And so that worked for us. I felt like I was getting better because I had that passion, not necessarily instilled, but I grew to love it, right? And I grew to kind of take it and make it my own. And that's important. But I also think it's really cool to see LeBron and his son's dynamic in the team, and how he's kind of hyping him up, and their relationship is really, really cool to watch. We were just different, but
that's your dad too, right? That's your dad now.
Oh yeah,
with the NBA team. Like, he's not an owner who's like Mark Cuban. He's just kind of chill on it. He doesn't want to be in the limelight.
Exactly. And I think that's something I was when Last Dance came out, I actually mentioned that, he can really turn it on and turn it off when he wants to. I think the problem is when he turns it on, it's a little harder to get it to turn off, right? So he's very cautious about, where he's going to be competitive and where he's going to just be like, you know what, you got to let the people let the team do what they're supposed to do. And I've actually learned a ton just from watching that, how he interacts with the organization, delegation, really just being in that position of leadership and how to deal with people, for sure.
We're dropping our merch. We got to start calling Underwood Daddy Brad. I'm a big odd guy. Breaking news. The Field of 68 has an online store, and it's your one-stop shop for the latest and greatest merch in college basketball and college football. You can find shirts to support your favorite team, make fun of your rival team, or boast Field of 68 catchphrases like Daddy Brad, Cussin' and Discussin', and the Star Heels. Go to www.fieldof68.shop today and enter promo code touchdown for 20% off at checkout.
Jeff, did you feel an internal pressure to play basketball? Like, or were you steered toward it, or was it something that you from a young age really knew you wanted to do?
It was something I think I knew I really wanted to do. I think you could have told me that I would be a billionaire, predict the future. I would be a billionaire and do all these things, be an entrepreneur, and I probably still would have, ran my head against the basketball wall. So, it was something that we just had a passion for, myself, my brother. And we played a lot of sports, but football is probably my best. Basketball probably was second, but it was my first love, so I stuck with it.
Going back to what Jeff just kind of talked about with your dad coaching, do you ever remember a time where your dad maybe got after you after a game, or some of that competitive fire maybe did come out?
Absolutely. I think we would have to almost egg it out of him. You have to egg him on to get it. I think definitely in high school, probably about my sophomore, junior year, he just wanted me to really know when to shoot and when to pass, right? I think I was just getting to that level where you have people that can score, just as good as you do. You have people that are able to do the things that you can. How do you know when to pick and choose your spots? And so that would be mainly, I remember a couple games in high school, he was just railing me like, why didn't you take this shot? Why didn't you take that shot? But it'd be quick. Like, it wasn't like, it was like a couple minutes after the game, and it would just stop like that. But we just we watched so much basketball. Like, we would just sit and watch game after game after game after game. That's how I kind of began to take my advice or take my learnings from him, is just through the IQ.
It's funny you say that, because I had the same conversations with my dad about when to shoot, when to pass after a game where I took 2 shots in a high school game. And it wasn't like I should shoot all the time, but it was about being aggressive and picking your spots. And I just think it's funny because your dad's coming from a place of 6 NBA championships. Yeah. And my dad's coming from he played #1 singles at the University of Illinois for the tennis team. So, it's the same conversation, but it's really not. But it is interesting that we were having the same conversation probably around the same time.
Absolutely. And dads know, like, they can see it when you're being a little bit more tentative, right? They have an innate sense of where your aggression is and can see that from a distance. And so, definitely took all that to heart. And it wasn't the last time we probably had that conversation, but, junior, senior year, I started just letting it fly, having more fun, not thinking about when to do this or when to do that for sure.
So Rob and I went through the questions last night a little bit. He was like, all right, ask him when the first time you ever beat your dad in one-on-one. I'm like, what do you mean when he beat him? I said, why don't we ask him when the most points he ever scored?
Every son has beat their dad if they were good at some point.
It's Michael Jordan. Wait, you beat your dad? You beat your dad in one-on-one?
Oh, yeah. Really? It wasn't just him. So it was myself, my brother, my dad, and Carmelo Anthony playing just kind of cutthroat. Yeah. And there was some heat, obviously some trash talk. My brother and my dad were going at it a little bit. Me and Melo were going at it a little bit. And somehow, some way, I snuck out the win in a cutthroat one-on-one. So
how much trash did you talk?
I just walked out. To be honest, I didn't. There was already so much trash talk going. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna stay out of it. I'm gonna take my W and slide out to the left for sure.
Jeff, we've talked about LeBron, and we've mentioned him and his kids, Bronny and Bryce, are starting to maybe go through some things that you have experienced. And you certainly had the hype building as well. I remember our senior year of high school watching the game on ESPN where you guys played against North Central against Eric Gordon, who at the time, like, people think of Eric Gordon now as a 3-point shooter and a good NBA role player, but Eric Gordon was a freight train and a freak of nature athletically. I mean, unbelievable. So you're on national television, and the game is really billed as you and Marcus against Eric Gordon. So you felt that pressure. What kind of are these kids going through as they're dealing with much of the same thing that you were?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely a lot of similarities. Definitely dealing with people off the court, having opinions, commenting on this or that. A lot of people that, probably haven't even watched them play, just, putting some expectations on them in one way or another. That's par for the course when you obviously had a father that's had some success in the sport. And then there's a lot that they are going through that I can't even imagine, right? Like there's tons that have changed from Instagram to, Twitter, and just the rise of social platforms and NIL being what it is now. So there are a lot of similarities, but a lot has changed as well, I would say. And they're probably going through some unique changes as well.
I mean, can you imagine just like what Bronny goes to prom and people are critical of his prom? I mean, like as a 16-year-old kid, it's like, I just want to play basketball and be normal. And that is
Absolutely
hard to fathom.
I can't even
through some of that. I mean, Jeff, you went through some of that. The difference is now the world sees it through social media.
Exactly. I think that's it's not a small difference just because it's a lot more visible, right? You could cover up some of those mistakes without, if you have 100,000 followers versus a million, 1.5, right? And so that it makes a difference, but I think at the same time, like I said, you have to be able to and willing to shut that out in order to progress as a player. And I think they've done a great job of that so far. And obviously that's all praise to their parents.
Have you followed Bronny and Bryce a decent amount, Jeff? Just from maybe taking interest as it's a similar deal?
Definitely. I mean, I would love to bring them on our platform and potentially sign and work with them for sure. So I'm sure they have a lot of suitors, but definitely I've been keeping tabs on them since their early days. And yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting to see kind of how they progress and how they handle it, with all the social pressures that are going on. But yeah, it's pretty cool to watch for sure.
Like I said, I've seen him multiple times. I just saw him in July again. He is so impressed, Bronny, so impressive in his composure. And you had the same thing. I mean, you were pretty even keeled, composed, nothing rattled you. I feel like, it's got to be the case because, again, you've grown up with it, right? You've grown up with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the haters, I just don't understand it. I don't get it. It's like, you didn't ask for this. It's not like you just want to play ball. He just wants to play ball.
Absolutely. It's easy to criticize when you haven't had that experience, right? If you haven't been on the court in the trenches with these guys, seeing how they handle adversity, then, everybody's going to have their opinion one way or another. But that's why I'm thankful. I got the chance to play with guys like Robbie and, our class throughout that time because, that's where I feel like, I grew up a lot. I learned a lot through playing with those guys, being with those guys. And, hopefully it happens for them as well. But you're always going to have the haters. You're always going to have people outside of that world that don't understand or don't have to experience what you experience on a daily basis.
Give me the one piece of advice you would give Bronny. If you could talk to him, not about your platform, about being Bronny, going through kind of what you went through.
So, yeah, Bronny, sign with my platform.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, just keep doing what he's been doing. I think he's got a laser focus. I would say just, continue to have fun and just be mindful of where your level is at, where your stress is at, where your game's at, where you're if you're having enough fun, just being more aware and being mindful of where you are in that moment, and continue to progress, keep doing what he's doing for sure.
So staying on the topic of LeBron, Jeff and I were laughing about this last night. Every person that follows basketball in this country has the debate of who is the greatest player of all time, LeBron James or your dad.
Yeah.
Do you have an opinion on it? Because everybody else does. Like everybody else feels a certain way about it. So I guess you're biased, I suppose. You have to be, but do you
I
get
can't
these
wait
arguments?
till he says, hey, I can't wait till he says, Rob, LeBron James is the greatest player ever.
No, there's zero chance. There's zero chance.
That's
But
never gonna happen.
Do you get these arguments too? I assume you have to.
Absolutely. I get them all the time. And yeah, I'm obviously biased. I'm biased towards my pops. But, you know, I think it's hard. And this is something my dad said multiple times. It's hard to compare generation to generation of basketball players just because, I mean, as you guys know, the sport changes, the game changes, the talent level is, you know, more or less changing or different every year. So, you know, it's tough to say, oh, well, this era is better than this era. But, you know, I think that's pretty much how I don't really give opinion. I don't, you know, I think people know where I stand on this issue. So I don't think about it too much.
You can't compete with 6-0 in the finals. That's all that we'll say about this, right? You can't compete with that.
Exactly.
You mentioned The Last Dance earlier. You know, it like captivated the country during the pandemic, right? It was like the timing of that coming out could not have been better because everybody was watching it and everybody had an opinion on it. What was, give me your biggest takeaway of it. Give me your biggest takeaway of something that maybe even you were like, man, I didn't know that.
I think just the amount of just the interpersonal dynamics. There was something every year going on with that team. And when you have some success, or, you know, even before they had the success that they did, just seeing how they met these challenges, like the Pistons, you know, like maybe some inner squabbles, like you know, some of the trash talk and maybe some bad practices. You know, I think there was just a lot of overcoming challenges, which is what I got out of it. And it took every single one of those guys on each of those teams to do that. So it was really interesting to see. And I think for my dad personally, it was, I got to see, I think I had a better understanding of how he was a leader or how he saw himself as a leader. And obviously how the team saw him as a leader. So definitely it was super informative. I've only watched it once. I got to go back and watch it a couple more times.
I do too. I want to watch it again.
Yeah, I've been waiting and saving it for the right time and, you know, right space and, you know, go back into it. But I think it was perfect showing, perfect movie, and perfect time for sure.
Did your dad like it? Did your dad have you talked to him about it after he watched it?
I had talked to him a little bit before we released it. I had seen snippets of it, and I know he was a little nervous about it being seen by the public. And, you know, my feedback was, I think people are going to love it. You know, I think people are going to love to see that fire and how you took it, you know, how you took leadership, a leadership position, and what that meant, right? That wasn't the same in the 80s as it was in the 90s in terms of him leading the team. And just seeing the rest of the team, like seeing how they all interacted, you know, having utmost respect for Phil. I think handling all these different personalities couldn't have been easy. But it was awesome. It was awesome to see for sure.
So for the 98 season, you would have been 9. You're 89, correct?
88. Yep.
88. So you'd have been 9 or 10.
Yeah.
What's the coolest moment that you remember from maybe going with the 90s Bulls? I'm sure by the end of it, you remember stuff. I mean, some of the stuff you never know because you've seen it maybe in replays and, you know, you think you remember, but I guess if you could pick a moment from that kind of run with the Bulls, is there something that sticks out story-wise for you?
I think I probably remember all the way back to like the baseball days, like Birmingham and that stuff. You know, snippets here and there before that, but what really stuck out was the trip to France after the 72. I think it was after the 72 or maybe right before 72 and 10 season.
That was the McDonald's classic deal in Paris. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. I remember my dad actually went a year before that. I think he had some Nike brand stuff, and then I ended up, you know, I was excited to go with him on this trip and got to ride on the team plane. My sister, my brother, my mom all took the Concorde over, and we were supposed to switch on the way back. And I was like, nah, I'm gonna stick with the team there and back. But that was a really cool tournament to watch and just see like a whole nother culture, like how they react to him. It was amazing to see.
So looking at like issues now, all these athletes are very outspoken. Your dad never has been. He never really has been. He's kind of stayed in his lane to himself a little bit. And I think people like me, again, you know, having so much respect for him, and he had so much juice, so much power. Have you talked to him about that? Of like, hey, Dad, you could impact so much with your thoughts, with your words, with, you know, what you've experienced. Have you talked to him about that? And has he told you why he doesn't do it more?
Yeah, we've definitely, you know, my siblings and I have definitely talked to him about it. And, you know, I think he's you know, he's done a lot. He does a lot through, you know, giving back to the community, you know, building new structures. I think that's the way he prefers to show his support or show where he stands, as opposed to coming out and saying words, right, or speaking on it. I definitely think he could be, you know, his voice is obviously super powerful and strong, and, you know, it could definitely sway, you know, public opinion this way or that way. But I think that's just not what he wants to be a part of, right? He'd rather just build and support the causes that he loves, and do his talking that way. I mean, personally, I'm still trying to figure out when is the right time to speak, and when is the right time to kind of be quiet, right? Just because of
Not easy.
That example.
Well, you must feel that way of like anything you say. And have you always felt that way? Like growing up, anything you say, you've got to be careful about, because it could be taken the wrong way, or listen, it might be taken the right way, but your dad might even be like, hey, why did you say this?
Right.
This impacts me as well.
Right. Definitely. I think it's definitely something that's gotten harder as the years go on, because of the visibility that social media provides. But it's always been there, right? That's something our parents were telling us, you know, you're going to be treated differently. You have to watch the things you do, the things you say. And then obviously the more exposure we got to, you know, to the rest of the world, and kind of grew our own followings a bit, that's only became more and more important, you know, as we've seen over the past couple of years and decades. So, you know, you could definitely, I think it's powerful. I think everybody, I'm sure you guys deal with it too. Sometimes it's like, yeah, okay, well, thinking about something that I said, or maybe getting some comments or feedback on some things you said. But, you know, I think it's always great to state your opinion and where you stand on things. And, you know,
it's harder now. No, you're right.
It's definitely harder. Definitely harder.
Yeah, I just feel like, again, in social media, this world, it's harder, because whatever you say can be amplified and really taken out of context, because you're dealing with like Twitter, however many characters, what is it, 280 now? Whatever it is.
Absolutely.
Like, I'll give you a great example. A few years ago, Kyrie was playing in Boston, and he stomped on the Celtics logo at the end of the game. And then he walked off the court and somebody threw a bottle at him. And I basically put out a tweet saying, hey, both of them need to grow up, both the guy who threw the bottle and Kyrie. I wasn't equating that. I wasn't saying it was the same level, but I could only fit that in 280 characters. People killed me for it.
Right.
They're like, how are you saying they're the same? I'm like, no, I'm not saying they're the same, but I can't fit it in the one tweet. I got to fit it into two tweets.
Right. You can't put, you know, a whole conversation in context in a couple of tweets. And, you know, my brothers had more experience with it, because he definitely, he has a filter now, but he didn't always have one.
Yeah, no, he did not. He did not.
and so, you know, I think I had the benefit, you know, which is rare. I had the benefit of watching how he interacted on social media, where, you know, usually I'm leading the charge and going through things first, but yeah, he jumped out there, and you got to see kind of that lash, that backlash. But it's just tough. It's hard. You know, I think it's one of the great things about our country, obviously free speech. And then on the other side of that, you know, there's you know, there's some sensitive topics out there, and some people that get offended really, really by really, mean and maybe not so mean stuff. So it's interesting. I think, I've only gotten more into kind of seeing comments and tweets like literally my last couple of years. But prior to that, it was something I never really paid attention to because there was that fear of being criticized or ridiculed for what I say.
Jeff, does it surprise you how people still react to your dad just because he hasn't played in? I mean, what did he retire from Washington in 2002?
2002, yeah.
But then you see him at, like, if he's at the national championship game, the cameras show him constantly for North Carolina when they were there, or even the top 75 thing. That's a group of elite alpha males, but there was clearly one alpha male that is above all of the rest, and it's like the way people react to your dad, to me, is really incredible when he has not played in almost 25 years.
Right. No, definitely. The 75th anniversary was, I think, I'm glad you mentioned it. It's probably the biggest moment that I really seen, and that I realized, the impact that is still there, especially amongst peers, right? And I think in some respect you expect that the most from your peers, but to see it and kind of just to see him embrace it as well, I get goosebumps now thinking about it. It's pretty cool to see it and pretty cool to watch. So yeah, honestly I'm a little surprised, but not really when you see the inner basketball community still kind of praise and look towards his accolades for sure.
Give me Jeff the one, because he had people fear him. Like, people were intimidated, they were scared of him. Give me the best story of when you were scared as shit of your dad.
Oh man. There's only been there's probably been a handful of times. I think the biggest one, I was a kid. He was out of town on a work trip, and I was just getting I was a sophomore, actually, not a kid. I was getting my learner's permit, my driver's permit. And I don't know what popped into my head, but one day I took out his SLR McLaren. And it was just, I don't know what I was thinking. I just, maybe I'll take it around the block or go around the circle, come back in the gate. And when I brought it back in, I parked it the wrong way. And so when he got home, he was like, he knew, I guess somebody might have told him, or he saw it on camera. And I was terrified. We had to have a long talk. And yeah, it was not one of my best moments, not one of the best moments.
You didn't ding it up, did you? There was no like dings on this thing, was there?
Yeah, no. It was just parked the wrong way.
Such a rookie move.
Yeah, it was such a rookie move. I don't know how, to this day, how I let that slip, but he was pretty pissed off, and good reason. I mean, that car was way faster than I could handle at that age. So so I'm just glad I didn't scrape it up.
Hey, before we finish here, I wanted to ask you, I'm like every other basketball player in the world, that when they stop playing, they start to love golf for some reason. First of all, have you started playing? And if you have, how insane is Grove 23, your dad's course, that he basically was just like, I'm sick of playing slow, so I'm just going to build my own course, which most of us have to complain of, well, we'll just keep playing slow, but
exactly. It's awesome, man. Yeah, I've definitely been playing. Obviously, being out in Florida, golf capital of the world, it feels like. Been playing a ton and getting out to Grove as much as possible. It's been fun. That's usually where we connect and get to hang out and see each other. And, obviously I was on the other side of the country for about 8 years. So now it's a lot of catch up and, having fun, and golf is a great way to do it. I don't know what it is about, basketball players just trying to get
everybody
out there.
does it. It's like the natural progression of when your body breaks down enough to not be able to play basketball, everybody starts playing golf. I don't know why.
Yeah, Courtney Lee is another friend of mine out here. We actually play together pretty often. Guys love playing.
Hummel says he's good. He says he's really good right now.
I've been grinding, Jeff. I've been working on my game.
I mean, all he does is play golf.
I'm not gonna ask you your handicap because mine isn't too good right now. But but we should definitely play.
No,
man.
let's
Next
do
time
it.
you
Let's
come
do
out
it.
or-
Next
or
time I'm in
come out
Florida,
there.
I'll definitely look you up.
Hummel's got plenty of days off in the he's got a long off season there.
Hey, you know
Long
what?
off.
The summers are
Awesome.
the time to relax after you call these games in the winter time, right?
Absolutely. So yeah, we'll hit Grove. Let me know.
Let's do it.
Listen, we really appreciate you coming on. It's been way
thanks,
too
Jeff. This
long.
was awesome.
Yeah, I
Thank
know
you,
for you guys, it was very cool to kind of reconnect this way. And
Absolutely.
at some point, we'll get your off the air your best Hummel story from the Nike camp. I'm sure he got in trouble, broke curfew, did something wrong.
You know that
Definitely.
IUPUI campus, it's a wild place. So
It is. It's a
never
wild
know.
spot.
Thanks, man.
Thank you guys so much.
Listen,
man. We'll
appreciate
talk to you
it. Good luck with everything in the future and continued success.
soon. Anytime, guys. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it.